How are we doing, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the Shaun Attwood channel. I'm Ron Swanson. I'm here tonight with Max, and we're going to be delving into, I think, what a lot of people sort of question is the MK Ultra, the symbolism in media, and of course, these religious epicenters that seem to be plagued with nothing but conspiracy and a long trail of proven legal issues. But Max, thank you so much for being here. Can you just tell the viewers a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you do, and thanks so much for being here.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I do interviews because it is important for everyone on the planet to understand what actually goes on behind the scenes, because we do have the power to end it, but the first step is, of course, awareness. I myself have been the victim of, I know there's certain words I can't say, so let's see how to say this.
Okay.
Child transportation being
Yep.
given as a party favor out. Torture. I was taken repeatedly to an underground facility in Rome. It did connect it with a tunnel underneath. There was a sort of like a magnetic train. It connected to the subterranean levels of the Vatican. So in the facility, I was put through many things, electric shock, isolation, extreme temperatures, like I would be put in a freezer. I had to witness the brutalization of animals and other children, including babies and adults. I was violated repeatedly. I know I can't say that word, the R word.
You're doing incredibly well, Max. I just want to say you really are.
Beatings, all kinds of psychological tortures, and MK Ultra type experiments. If you've seen the show Stranger Things, which I made a comparison on, that thing on Eleven's head, I've experienced things like that. And then I was also taken to this room that's well below the Vatican. So people seem to think it's where there's tombs. No, it's well under there. And in that room, I have witnessed babies and small children be sacrificed. There would be a ritual. There would be what you can call elites in attendance. The child is brutalized and then cut from here down with a very special ceremonial knife. There are chalices. The blood is collected. It is drank. This has a name which I can't say on air. It starts with A. And in these rituals, they are devoted to Lucifer. The Vatican is Luciferian, although they pretend to be Christian on the surface. I was taken to and put through many satanic rituals, some in the Vatican, some outside at different people's, very wealthy people's mansions. So some might look like a black tie ball, kind of like Eyes Wide Shut, what they portrayed in that movie, except they didn't show the children being brought in. Some would be on grounds, and they were the hunting parties. So you went and hid ran and hid in the woods or in the brush, and they had a lot of fun hunting the children. There would always be the sacrifice of at least one at the end of these parties. I have witnessed platters being brought out where the meat is a cooked baby. They eat flesh, they drink blood. They enjoy torture. They enjoy the most brutal types of things that they can do, things that I probably won't even share because it might traumatize the viewers. There are certain rituals that are done on boats, yachts, that are in the water because the law says there's a different law in water. And so they can easily murder after brutalizing the children. They like to chop up body parts, throw them in the water for the sharks. There are rituals that are called the ninth circle, ninth circle referring to Dante's level of hell. Popes attend these. Popes attend the rituals I saw. They go on these boats for those rituals. They're completely complicit. There's a lot of symbolism for those who have eyes to see in the Vatican that shows you what I'm saying is true. So anyway, there were abilities that I had that were enhanced. They train children through trauma. It's called trauma-based mind control. The Nazis had perfected this into a science. Then if you look up Project Paperclip, those scientists at the end of the war were brought to America. That's when the CIA began with their MK Ultra program, which was discovered and is out there as a fact, except they lie and say it was just the use of LSD and isolation, but they're omitting the things I just mentioned, which are part of it. And the point of it is that if you torture someone, you fragment the psyche, and then they take those fragments and they program in alters. So they program into people certain abilities, like this is how they make spies, super soldiers, honeypots, being able to do telekinesis, astral travel. They program psychic abilities into children so that then they can be used to do a lot of different functions. So there's certain triggers that will bring in an alter to do a task, but then the person doesn't remember it because their front alter, it's all very dissociated. So this is, of course, done deliberately. So that's just a little bit of that. I was able to get out when I was 18. I was in Italy at the time. I came to the United States. I changed my name. I got several degrees in psychology. I ended up working with people with trauma, initially within places like prisons, inner cities, things like that. Eventually, some of the memories that I had suppressed began to just bubble up and come out. So I did a deep dive in healing work. And then some years after that, I decided to start speaking out because this still happens to children today. There are about 3 million children a year that go missing, and they're being used in these ways. And I should mention that the Jesuits have worked closely with Mengele. So the Jesuits are mind control experts. The Vatican is kind of, as you were telling me earlier, the Vatican is its own city-state, and that's correct. They're the mind control arm of the global cult.
Okay.
So the Jesuits are one of the most evil people on earth, by the way, and they actually have facilities where they breed children to raise them in these facilities to do these. So in the Stranger Things show, the character 11 was a good example of a child that was bred. Children are also brought in there by their families. They're also kidnapped in various ways. So there's a variety of ways they get children, but some of them they actually breed. And that in that show showed that very well. And that's why when she left, she didn't know a lot about the world. There are actually children that are bred and raised underground and don't ever come up to the surface. It's terrible. So anyway, that's a little bit about me.
That was a lot of harrowing information, Max. And I just want to say, everything you're saying, the elites, the religions, the people of power, I'm fully invested in the reality of all of this. The cabal, however you want to summarize it. And hearing just a touch of your story, people are going to be, people always want to know who, right? It's always about the names and who's responsible and the pound of flesh. But the reality of all of that isn't as simple for survivors. And there is a lot of people who do you mind me just asking you some questions about some of the things that have gone on. Because a lot of people always say, well, how do these survivors survive? And there is a legacy to some of these individuals where they want to see the fruits of their labor out in the world to see just what comes of them. It's a twisted state. And when you discuss the hunts, I've had discussions with a few individuals who've gone through these things, and they mentioned kill switches that can be installed, and you had mentioned altars and things like this that are being brought forward. Have you had any experience where people have been programmed to, unalive themselves on a switch?
I had, I know I can't say the S word, but I had unalived programming put in me that would be triggered if I ever spoke out. So the first time I spoke out was to a therapist, and it immediately opened it. It was extremely powerful. I would actually drive to a train station near my house, go up onto the platform. It was this huge impulse, this voice in me that would say, jump, jump, jump. And the trains would pass by. And somehow I would keep my feet glued to the platform and not. And then at some point, I would be able to tear myself away and drive back home. And this happened repeatedly for a couple of years. But I learned to discern what was a program in me and what was my own thought. And I knew that that was a program. And even so, it was extremely difficult to conquer. I did. So this is absolutely true.
Let me ask you.
Go ahead.
Because you mentioned abilities and forcing certain things that, I mean, I'm sure you're the same, that you would agree that a lot of these gifts are within everyone. Yes. And if evildoers can figure out a way of pulling them out and forcing them, that's one thing. Did you notice any correlation between individuals who had a better success with accessing those gifts and being able to fight the programming compared to someone who wasn't as successful with those gifts, and those sort of unaliving switches being more effective?
Yeah, I've thought about that a lot. I do believe that one factor is the soul of the person. I have had a memory pre-incarnation of being at a sort of a meeting and discussing the earth and how it was overtaken by these dark forces. And I remember volunteering to incarnate here, so to speak, behind enemy lines. Because when you're outside, you can't interfere, but you can incarnate and then try and expose things from the inside. So that was my sense, that I chose to incarnate where I did, and I knew I would survive and be able then to use that experience to expose it, because it's us survivors that I think are going to end this by all the exposure all the things we're revealing. So I think one factor is the soul. Another factor is, many, many children perish. And so they don't care. They're looking for the ones that are strong enough to survive, because then they can be much more useful. And then if you think about it, if you survive, it's like if you become a black belt in a martial art, eventually all that training makes you kind of a super weapon or a superhuman. So I liken this to back in the Olympic times when the Chinese or the Soviet athletes would win all the medals, because those kids were taken by age 2 and super trained in their athletic ability. So they became at a higher level. Yeah. So basically you either rise to the occasion or you perish. That's pretty much the choice, right? So right. They don't care how many children perish. Then they make good use of the ones that have the strength to survive what they put us through.
Yeah, it's a crazy thought process to imagine who's strong enough to survive the mental torture, the fragmentation of the brain, the desensitization, the forced everything, the traumas, all of it.
Yeah,
And
I want to say something about that. They call it when the person is so stressed, you dissociate, and they call it dissociative identity disorder.
yeah,
But it's not a disorder. It's actually a very clever coping mechanism. So that's how we survive all of that, because
yeah.
you dissociate it and put it away so that you can keep going. And then later, at some point, it comes back when you're an adult and you can handle it.
I speak a lot about how I think those who use ritualistic and this horrific ongoing trauma of children, they have weaponized DID, because when a survivor who's in, 20 years after all this has happened, has got a medical file this thick and tries to get legal help and all the rest of it, they use this as a reason for, hey, listen, hey, I know she's got all this evidence, but hey, you might want to take this with a pinch of salt, right? It's so evil, and it's so far gone, the level of evil, to perfect that level of weaponizing this, because exactly what you said, it is for survival. A lot of people we don't often mention that it is to save the current mindset from this hideous world. And can you just talk a little bit about how how people handle that as survivors when it comes to coming to terms with not only what they've been through, but now what they face with DID?
It's really difficult. My healing process felt almost as brutal as what I survived, because all the compartments opened and things came back. And as an example, the body always remembers, even when the mind does not, right? So I had a child, and when I went to give birth, for some reason, the doctor said that even though everything went normally, the baby would not descend into the vagina and come out. So eventually they had to do a cesarean and take my child out. And then I was in a room for a few days, and immediately they wanted to take the baby into the other room with the other babies and clean her up and do all these things. And once they took her, I started to scream and say that they were killing her. They were killing her. So they rushed her back, and I wouldn't let my baby go. And this whole experience, I had no memory, but later what came back to me is I had become impregnated a few times from the violations as a teenager. They like to have people carry the baby almost to term, and then they did a forced extraction of the infant and murdered them. This happened to me several times. So my body remembered. And when later, even though my mind didn't remember, I was reacting to that. My body didn't want to let the baby out for fear that she would
Yeah.
be murdered. And then when she was taken, that's what I was literally screaming. And I did not know why I was even saying that. So when the memories begin to come back, it's actually very stressful and confusing, because you think that your life and it's one kind of way or one set of memories, and then all these pieces come back. And mind you, it makes the bigger picture make much more sense because there's holes. So the holes fill in and the puzzle becomes clear. But at the same time, it's very crazy making, because all of us survivors will at some point question our own sanity and think, are we crazy? Did I make this up? Is this even possible? And then, of course, like I said, the pieces fit and the evidence comes in, but it's actually really difficult. It's a very difficult process.
Yeah, it's something that I think a lot of people quickly skip over in the survivor story. Whether that's, I don't mean that almost in a withholding the information. I mean from someone who's absorbing the story. I don't think we really have any idea of that milestone, you know. And let me just bring you back. Let me just, because that was. I mean, that it's a lot when you can see just how much you've gone through and where you have arrived at now, Max. It's so prevalent, you know. You talked about the soul, okay, a moment ago. Do you think that and this is quite deep, and I'm going to just sidetrack this, and then we'll come back to the MK Ultra in a second, right?
Mhm.
Do you think that reincarnation and coming back has been something that modern religion has encouraged us to sway away from? Live your life, cross over, go to your place of rest, which then in theory would produce a lot of new souls. There wouldn't be a lot of older souls. Do you believe that we're seeing possible in individuals like yourself where older souls are the ones who have managed to make it further when it comes to transportation or it comes to the evils of the world, because your body reacted in that way, like you talked about with giving birth, because it remembered something. And when we often talk about the soul, we don't give enough credit to just how marvelous and wondrous it is. So do you believe that older souls are better prepared for dealing with this level of horror?
Yeah, and so I'm going to reveal some things that I know, and some of it's going to sound a little out there. But so old souls, yes, but also souls that incarnate from other, let's say, planets or places in the universe
Off world, of course.
that are of much higher frequency. So are willing to incarnate in a very dark, low level, low consciousness, high density planet. So we may come from places where the consciousness is much higher. So that's an age, I guess, of the soul itself, right? Now with reincarnation, there is something that, you call it the cabal, I call it the global cult. There's
Same thing. Yeah, let's go with it. Yeah, 100%. Global cult's fine.
They have had so we're multi-dimensional beings, but they have put a ceiling on us and kept us in very low levels of what we are actually capable of.
I agree.
But they have technology that's on the planet, but also off the planet. Okay, so what has happened is they're very clever, and they have actually forced reincarnated us. So there has been a technology that's gone from the moon to Saturn. When I was a child, I see things with the inner eye, and I saw it as this gray veil over the planet. So they would basically, it was like a net. And so when you left your body upon death, they would say, go to the light, but it was a false light. And they would lure people there and then reincarnate them back into their system. One of the benefits of that is that you don't return to source. So you bring back all your unresolved traumas in the next incarnation. Hence, a lot of people remember that, right? They say, I was hung before or whatever.
But also things like, for example, I have the most bizarre fear of heights, and it's not a fear of the height. It's a fear of someone pushing me over the edge of it. I have this clear residual. It's weird, right? And it's the same with watching things being cut, right? So if there's a movie and someone's cutting themselves or something like this, it's obviously fake, right? It's a movie. You know what I'm saying? My brain I feel it all. It makes it all so real. And I often wonder about that because I've not gone through any weird, knifey traumas or fallen off anything or any of these things. But it makes me wonder about 100%. So these are sort of my relatable data point entries when it comes to residual stuff. And I just wanted to ask you about that because a lot of people in my circles believe the same as you and I, Max, and that there is a lot of wonder to our DNA that is off-world, it's on-world, and there's a lot of things that we don't get told. I'm sure Admiral Byrd, if he was still here and alive with us today, would have a few things to say about that ice wall and the last trip ever to that region of the world. It's not out of the realm of possibilities that humanity is getting to the point where it's laughable to think we got to where we are without anything interfering. You know what I'm saying? So let's circle back to the process of these individuals. You talked a little bit about farming, you talked about missing children. all of this. I've often said there's nothing better for evil than a natural disaster in a third world country. You know what I'm saying? Once you have all of these already partially documented individuals, now parents and infrastructures are gone. There's a lot of that. In your sadly in your experience, where were these children coming from? Like, was it mixing and matching? And again, I hate to break this down in such a way for you, but did you see different individuals facilitate different types of sourcing these kids? So was there street grabbers? Was there people that dealt with the families that were totally cool with all of this and wanted their kids to just be used by these monsters? And if so, how broad and widespread is the network?
Hmm. Well, the network is global, so it's everywhere. It's infiltrated. Governments of countries are the lowest rung on the hierarchy of this global network. And presidents, by the way, prime ministers, heads of state, they don't actually have any real power. They're puppets. They're actors on a stage, doing the bidding of the levels of the hierarchy above them. So to answer your question, so some children, like I said, are bred in these facilities. The Jesuits do this a lot. They will create an embryo, they will enhance it, and they will implant it into captive women. So in Stranger Things, and towards the end, they had a scene where they showed all these pregnant women strapped down. That is real.
Let me ask you, are they seen as the higher investment or the low? So are they produced for regular fodder, or are those the ones who are investing in development?
They're just a womb.
They're just a womb. Okay.
Yeah. So, for example, children are bred. They're implanted into captive women who are just a womb. And then when the woman gives birth to the infant, they are actually sacrificed.
Okay.
So that's one level of how they get children.
Okay.
Another level is through Child Protective Services, foster care system, medical kidnapping, which is pretty popular now. So they will bring in these kids. Another thing is wars generate orphans. So any kids that are in these kinds of situations will be fodder for this. And then there are bloodlines and families that are involved in the network. The network will have many levels. So whatever families are involved at local levels, at national levels, at higher global levels, those children will also be brought in. If you have probably heard this with celebrities, that they're asked to give their firstborn as a sacrifice or to trans them. You know, this is pretty common. So one thing I'll say is a lot of these important, quote, elite families, they will put their own children through these things because they will create these different altars. They'll literally be groomed for future leadership roles. That's the way that they do it. So there's a combination of all kinds of ways that children are brought in.
It's really interesting that you bring the altar state as controllable versions that can manifest for control purposes. Now, just bear with my brain's not as educated on terminology and things like that, but that's what makes sense when people say, "Oh, they were bred to be in power." Well,
yes,
it always makes you scratch your head, right? Well, sure, but at some point you're going to, hit your mid-20s and go, I think I might be part of a bloodthirsty, sacrificial family and should probably do something about this. But when you imagine you've got the face, the brand, right? And then you've got the puppet masters behind, it's DID and using these altars to bring forward the person that is the one who's controlled. That's just put a massive piece into a puzzle for me, Max, if I'm being honest with you. You've just sort of connected some of the dots for...
I can tell you something else. So anyone who's going to enter any kind of global leadership position, so high up in any level of society, they will be put through a ritual first where they need to violate and unalive a child. That's filmed, it's stored. So there's blackmail material. That's another facet of the situation. And then there's also the facet that in rituals I've been in and seen, these people and people in Hollywood I've seen on camera, they literally say it. They say, "I've sold my soul to Satan." So they can through rituals take in dark entities to run them. So they will actually surrender themselves to be inhabited by a demonic entity, and they consider this a privilege. And if you think of all these people at the higher echelons, what they get out of it is fame, wealth, power, control. And because these people are, ego is their highest threshold, they've cut off their connection to the life force, to the creator. So that's their ceiling. And so they are willing to do anything. Human beings can be pretty easily corrupted. And so that's how they get people, through the blackmail or through the enticements.
Absolutely. And people often say, well, they can't all just be, PDF files and child predators, and they've all got together. Well, listen.
Yeah, they are. If you're at a certain level, you've PDF filed. I can
100%. But you got to understand, some of these people are doing it just for money and power. Okay, they're so disconnected. And listen, when I started my journey on being awoken and all the disclosure and realizing my own capabilities, Max, there was a lot of my friends who were like, "It's all about love. It's all about love. As long as you've got love, it's fine." And it finally clicked, Max, right? That evil, because good and bad has to exist, right? The wolf has to eat the stag. Bad for the stag, good for the wolf. That's the balance of our world, okay? But evil, true evil, the things that you've witnessed and gone through, are only capable of manifesting where love is incapable of being. And people that want to blame it on demons and all these things, a demon can lure you to the things that you can make a bad choice to do. It's the free will and choice of man. Man is the only thing capable of manifesting evil. Okay. And dark forces and whatever you want to list it as can lead you to the doorway, but you as the individual are making the choice to do those, to manifest the evil. And it's funny because there's no way in the world anyone capable of love, as we know it, Max, could fathom what children and people like yourself have gone through. And it sounds so simple how we have been conditioned by the modern world, by the three big religions, all of this, that we need to put our faith outwards. And if we believe and love ourselves, it sounds so hippie and tree huggery because of how simplistic it is, Max, right? But it's true, right? And we as humans, we want things to be complex. We want it to be something that we need to understand. And the realities and the subtleties of the world and magic and all of this are things that we just miss now. People are just not picking up on them, and we're isolated, and we're going backwards in my eyes in society in a lot of senses. Do you think that this disconnection, right, that we have from normal community and each other has fueled the capability for these elites because we're not watching out for each other as much?
Yeah. So first of all, a psychopath, which they are, they don't have the capacity for empathy or love. And so they actually, they enjoy the sadism that the things that they do to the children. People can think, oh, well, you need to love those perpetrators. They cannot, they harvest our energy because they're cut off. So they're basically parasitic. So they use our life force and us to create essentially the hell on earth reality we inhabit today. So that's actually good news for us because we can withdraw that and create a different reality if we so desire. They don't understand love, so they think it's a weakness, but it's actually our strength. But yes, they have deliberately and very methodically socially engineered society to where we are today, where it's essentially Luciferian. Their values of moral relativism and, the PDF file kind of society we see there, where children at younger and younger ages are, dressed in these manners, and the culture has been groomed. When I was a child, which is, I'm in my 60s, so this was way back when, I overheard. I was trained in a audiographic memory, so I overheard the plan was to normalize PDF file, and then also to normalize Luciferianism. And if you look out there today, you see both things right in your face. They have achieved this.
Yeah.
And so they have slowly engineered us away from community, from compassion. And then that tech factor comes in, the smartphones and the wearable tech, and, the goals, of course, to implant things now in the body. So it's merging us with machine and stripping away that. And then everything has gone from local to global, because with global, they can exert complete control. So now, people live in big cities are by design as well. We used to live in smaller communities. So we used to grow our own food. We used to make our own clothes. We used to be multi-skilled in many kind of normal life things. And they've slowly taken that away. The educational system has been designed. They did a study and found that like 90% of children are at genius level. Once they start school and graduate, there's only 2 or 3% left. That's designed to suck that creativity, intelligence out. So they do things very slowly, except for in the last few years, but they've done things very slowly, drip, 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 to engineer humanity into their values. So yes, humans have gone from community and love, and think of even something like sexuality. If you look at the 50s, there was a different way that exhibited itself. There was courtship, there was sexuality within love. It had a spiritual component, and the social engineer, they moved the Overton window to the point today it's normal to hook up with someone you don't even know, right? So think of just how drastically that's changed in a few decades, and that's been done deliberately. So people think that culture is organic. I'm telling you, it's all by design. The different, look at there's a Beatles album cover that you can find and look at where they have baby dolls with the heads off and slabs of meat. Okay,
I believe it's Sergeant Pepper's Lonely Heart Club. With Meet Me at Lesso and all of the black and white images in the background, right? Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, all of these things have been engineered deliberately to get us to accept their way of living without us really knowing. It's called mind control. They've invested a lot in mind control through the education, the media, and then they've poisoned us, which is part of mind control. They poison the air with the things the airplanes spray. They poison the water, they poison the food, they put things in your body that are poison. It's all by design.
Of course.
But that tells me how powerful we are. And religions are designed, like you said earlier, to externalize that divinity and make it some man tells you and translates that divine connection for you. That's control right there too. That's mind control. So they've thrown, and then with the reincarnation trap, so they've really done a job of so much investment in reducing our consciousness, in mind controlling us because of who we actually are. And if we can wake up to that, heal the traumas and wake up to that, then they're done.
I agree. It's very much, there's a reason why we call them the 1%, Max. Okay. Do you remember that movie Ants, where all the ants became a massive ball and rolled together? Metaphorically, if we all stood on a field, okay, and it was the 1% versus us, it's over. It's over. And we're going home by lunchtime, Max. We're like all getting home for lunch on that day. But it's the power, it's the illusion, it's the barriers, it's society, it's got to pay the rent, got to do this, got to do that. It's the structure in which we have been handed a society that forces us to be in a perpetual cycle. And when it comes to things of wonder and getting our problems solved, we're being told that ain't us. We can't do that for ourselves. We need the man or the priest or whoever, insert word here, that can fix it all for us. And once you break free from that, obviously it has moments of feeling a bit lonely and a bit out there and a bit outcast. But once you get to grips with what we're capable of, people don't ask enough why we have all this junk DNA. Nature is a precise thing, okay? Nature is a very precise thing. And just wasting a whole bunch of time injecting junk into you doesn't really make a lot of sense. And a whole other discussion, it's a whole other podcast. But, I believe that all the wonders of the universe centralize into Earth. There's a reason why we're the most distracting planet in our solar system. We've got birds, yo. Name me somewhere else with birds. Our whole planet seems to be designed to keep us occupied and happy. Look at other planets. Some of them have like lava rain, okay? Like that's not inhabitable. It's almost like by design, we've been encouraged to not leave, okay? Because of how incredible this is. Arguably, I believe we're a seed bank, Max, for if a species is dying out, they can come and pull that little bit of residual DNA. That's why some people are more one way than the other. And it's a great, vast topic. Do you think the world is getting ready now to fully comprehend what we're capable of?
I think so. They have reset us many times, and this was the next one. But my perception is that this reset is failing and it's not going to happen. Instead of the Great Reset, it's going to be the Great Awakening.
Yeah, that's what I feel.
That junk DNA is just things that have been manipulated to sever the true nature of who we are. Yep. But consciousness can reset everything. Because, see, they keep us in survival frequencies, right? Mm-hmm. That's the bandwidth that they exist in. But if we go to the higher consciousness, higher frequencies, we're actually out of their reach at that point. So doing your inner work and healing, learning the truth is light, right? That combination causes us to rise, and then those DNA strands that were manipulated will turn back on, okay? Yeah. And then it's game over for these people. So yeah, this is the next reset that they've done, and everything in history is a lie. It's starting to come out. People are starting to notice the pyramids, the excavated cities. No way they could have been built by what they tell us our history was like before. Right. The mountains that they call mountains are actually tree stumps of these giant trees.
That's a whole other podcast too. I'll be honest.
But this is what I'm saying. They've reset us before many times. And this was was to have been the next reset, but they're still lagging behind. And I don't think it's too late. I think the cat's out of the bag, and it's not going to happen.
Okay. Let me circle back. Okay. If it's okay with you, going back to your story, what you went through. You'd said you'd made comparisons to Eyes Wide Shut, masks, robes. Can I ask you about symbology and iconography? Symbols that you'd seen, or writings that maybe looked odd, or anything like that. When it comes to symbols and identifying these groups, was there internal symbology, and was there symbology representative of the religious evil side of it, and also the collective group side of it, if that makes sense? So if there were a group of individuals from a country or a certain sect or whatever, was there subcategories, and were there symbols, and could we talk about that?
Yeah, so in terms of the Vatican, they come from the Black nobility, which actually originated in what they call the Fertile Crescent, sort of Iraq, maybe parts of Iran. So that is, and so they.
What did you say that was called, Max? What did you say? The what? The what crescent?
They come from the Fertile Crescent, Mesopotamia. That's where civilization began, and that's a whole nother podcast too, the origins. But the Vatican is the Black nobility. They were very connected with the Nazis, so that symbol of the Nazi, and it's the black sun. So in Luciferianism, it's the inversion of anything that's of the creator, and organic. So it's the absolute inversion. So the sun is a source of life. So their symbol is the black sun. And still today, many factions of global people belong to this black sun group.
Okay.
So by the way, the signs, when they said Black Lives Matter, they weren't talking about people of color. Okay. They were talking about themselves.
Interesting.
Yeah. So then there's other sides of the faction. They're called the dragon line or the dragon families, for example, the Rothschilds and people like that. And they're represented in many different countries. So there's factions of that in Asia. There's factions of that in the Middle East. They have different colors. And so these people, they're the sub factions of the global cult, and they all have their different symbologies. The thing you see in Hollywood where there's a covering of an eye, that's the all-seeing eye. That's what that means.
Of course, yeah.
It's on the dollar bill as well. There's all kinds of symbols, like in U.S. Congress, there's these symbols that are talk about binding. On the Pope's vestments, there are pedophile symbols. If you can actually go
I've seen them.
Google it.
Oh, listen,
Yeah,
we are well versed. I'll bring them up, but you're referring to the FBI's release of non-verbal identification symbols for PDF groups around the world. This all came to fruition round about the same time as the Clintons' email scandal and the indoor small tennis scenario, but which we can't talk about. But the symbols are real. And what I'll do is, if you continue talking, I'll bring up those symbols and I'll bring up some examples, including the one of the Pope that you were referring, Max.
Yeah, the Pope on some of his vestments has the triangle within the triangle within the triangle. So that's a PDF file symbol. The more common vernacular that you will hear Hollywood people talk about is they'll invite you over for pizza. That's little girl.
Mm-hmm.
They will invite you over for hot dogs. That's little boy.
Yeah.
Then they have different ones for orgy, for, these PDF file people like their age, their gender, their color. They have their preferences. So they speak in symbols to each other. The butterfly, for example, is a symbol of the Monarch program, which followed the original MK Ultra. They use that because the Monarch butterfly transmits its knowledge genetically and generationally. Yeah, there it is, right there on the robe.
Yeah. So this larger image here is one of the images that was released by the FBI. Here's an exact copy of the image that was released by the FBI here. Obviously, I want you to look at this logo here, the two hearts. This is the Walls ice cream logo. Let's stop cutting the crap here. Hands inside hands, hearts inside hearts. These are all identifying symbols. And you have this blatantly
it's in all kinds of corporate logos, also like the Google symbol is the 666. There's the other one is the Mason. It's like an apron. It looks like an envelope. That's another one.
Okay.
And actually, since you're on the Vatican, can you find a picture of the Vatican auditorium?
Yep, I sure can. I just want to show you this one. You may not have seen this. How's this for a Disney character for you? Let me just get a little closer for you there, Max. You see the symbols all over its body.
Oh yeah, there it is. Yep.
Wild. Right, the Vatican. What would you like me to Google? The Vatican
the auditorium. See if you can get a picture from a distance and then right up close, and I'll point out a couple of things there. I actually have a seminar I've done on the Vatican if people want to go on my website and watch it, where I have a lot of these pictures, but I'm sure it's easy to pull up. So see if you can find a
I'm on it now for you.
Vatican auditorium.
Okay. So it's not really giving me anything. I'm not going to lie.
Okay.
Hang on,
Well,
hang on. But I might. Oh, hang on. You're subject to my 5-year-old spelling capabilities, Max. That's one thing that will slow this down just a little bit. Just tell us where you're going with this whilst I look for it. So it might just take me a second. So just
yeah.
give me a second.
So if you enter the auditorium and you're looking at it from the back, it's a serpent head. The fangs are on each side of the stage.
Okay, I think I found it. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
Is it this thing?
Yes.
Okay, because makes a lot of sense. I mean, I'm looking at it right now. It wasn't until you said it looks like a serpent that I was like, it must be this thing.
There it is.
Wow.
Now, if you can find another one where the Pope is sitting in his chair, it's the inside there, and see what's behind him.
Oh wow!
It's
no way is that what's behind him. Okay, like if
see if you can pull that one up. There should be a closer one where you can go. So what you're seeing in the little box, there's one that shows you the backdrop.
Okay, I got you. I'm on a journey of being triggered by what I'm finding as you're telling me, Max. Okay, so just bear with me. So here's the one you're talking about, right? So you can see this now. Still looks fairly. It looks quirky, right? We've definitely got some eyes here. We've definitely got some fangs here. This definitely looks like a big evil face. Okay, 100%. Can't get any worse though, right, Max? It's not like we're going to zoom in here and there's going to be some weird stuff, right? Because what's this? What is going on here?
Now bring that a little closer. Okay, so that's supposed to be Jesus. If you can, first of all, that's completely demonic. If you can get close to the head, what you will see is a human face going to the left of the picture and a reptile face going to the right, which looks like his hair. But if you can zoom in,
100%, 100%. Like I'm not being funny. You could convince yourself that there's a human face here and that this is wind, hair blowing. That is not Jesus's face. You might think this is beard blowing or whatever, but that is mad. What is all this? This is skulls and scary faces.
Exactly.
That looks like a big spinal column. And there he is. Look at the Pope. Just sat there. He's tiny. Look at the size of this.
Yep. There it is. In plain sight, as it all is. When you have eyes to see, they're telling you. I want to explain something to you. Per universal law, this, as you alluded to earlier, is a free will planet. So they have to tell us, and we have to consent. Now, they've manipulated that because with all the mind control, we don't know what we're consenting and complying to. But here it is in plain sight. They're showing you that the Vatican is demonic and Luciferian.
Well,
they're
do you know what?
showing you, but Max, we don't see it. Okay.
Ronald's about to show you something in Photoshop here. Okay. Because can you all see this? Right. Okay. So you said that there's a face coming off the side, right? Yeah. Well, what if we rotate this 90 degrees clockwise? We bring it up here. We zoom in on this bit here and we just start playing around with these colors. That is in a completely different skull. I don't even know what that is, but that is some scariness coming off there.
It's a reptilian.
It's some scariness. I'm down with it being reptilian. I can actually see the big eye socket here, the lower jaw. You could even argue that they've got reference to the third eye just here.
Wow. Well, they have reference to the third eye on the staff of the Pope, it's symbolized by a pine cone. So they know the importance of the third eye. There's also a big pine cone sculpture in the courtyard in the Vatican Museum. So the third eye, here's 4 things that when they work in tandem, completely calcify the pineal. Fluoride, glyphosate, aluminum, and Wi-Fi.
Glyphosate, did you say?
Yes, it's what they spray on the wheat. In America, it's all the bread has it.
Oh, wheat. I thought you said the week. I was like, wait a minute. There's like a big line of people just lining up to get some spray. The wheat. Yeah.
My
Okay. Yeah.
American accent. Sorry about that.
No,
But
no,
yeah,
no. It's okay. No, I know your bread's a bit mad over there.
yeah.
There has
So
been some. Yeah. Carry on.
so think of those four things: the aluminum that they spray over us all the time and
Mhm.
are in the things, the food that's sprayed with the glyphosate, the
Yeah.
fluoride that's in the water system, and the Wi-Fi that we all live within everywhere we go. Those four things alone harm the pineal, but in concert, they do a good job of taking it offline. So what is the pineal? The ancients knew about this. They drew it. It's an Egyptian art. It's a physical part of the brain. It's inside. It's the eye that looks into other dimensions. It's the third eye, right?
Correct.
So it actually, interestingly, has photoreceptive cells, even though it doesn't get any light directly because it's buried inside.
It
And
has a
that's what
cornea. It has a
connects
cornea,
us.
right? It's got a
Yeah.
cornea and a lens, right? People don't, why is that not the one thing everyone's talking about? That you have the residual cornea and lens of a like dimensional eyeball in your brain. I mean, it sounds for those of you who maybe live rigorously within the known science of what muggles get spoon fed. This is all true. I'm a massive. My third eye's open. I'm very much on the upload and download scale of all of this. What would you say to people who want to believe and want proof of all this? Like, what would you say? Because we're all capable of this, Max, right? And it's great to sit and talk about uh, the control and all of this, but how can we help people turn the corner with this? Because I like to give people homework when I have somebody like you on. And a big shout out to Danny Henderson. Danny Henderson just dropped me a message there. Big shout out to her. Love a bit of Danny Henderson. Make sure you guys are checking out GSIC as well. That's happening this year. I will be there.
I'll be speaking there on the Vatican. So.
Right? Exactly. I will just be in the audience, just to be clear. When I say I'll be there, I'm not bigging myself up. I'm going there as a massive Danny Henderson follower. Okay, big shout out Danny Henderson. So
she's an amazing person, and she puts on the most profound and deep and comfort. Everyone should go. Absolutely.
100%. So big shout out Danny. She's a freaking badass. All right. And she's a real deal. She's a real deal. So yeah, big shout out to you, Danny, and we'll see you there. So listen, again, and I'm sorry, I get a bit all over the place because when I meet an individual like yourself, the survivor stories and all of this, they're important to share. But there's this layer, right? There's this layer that I feel is almost as important, which is to make people understand that they're capable, okay, of so much more. Okay, not that that takes anything away from the survivor story. It's just it almost puts a positive outcome and a positive spin on the harrowing and just traumatic events that have taken place, where people can almost feel like they're contributing to beating this system.
Yes. So one of the things that the global cult is afraid of is that we will remember who we are, that we will reconnect to all of who we are, the multidimensional aspects. Hence, they have done everything to poison the pineal, but also to poison our minds. Religion makes you feel small and guilty and that you're nothing and that something else. The Savior program's a big one. Jesus is going to come back and save us. Pleiadians are going to land a spaceship and save us. Trump is going to save us. It's all to disempower and to sever us from who we really are. They're very afraid of that. So, I mean, what I would say is, number one, heal your trauma, because trauma is where so there really are demonic entities, and there's a negative dark AI that has created this matrix overlay over us, right? And that AI, believe their technology is much more advanced. I saw what they had in the 70s, right? Which isn't even out today. So this machine can actually pull thoughts into our minds, emotions into us. And the way in is through the wounding. So if you heal your trauma, then you're no longer have like somewhere for that hook to hook onto. See, they know very well the human psychology. So the human brain is structured such that if you're in danger, your prefrontal cortex and your whole cortex shuts down, and only your so-called reptilian, that's on accident brain, and your limbic brain, you in a situation of real danger of survival, it takes too many seconds to think about a solution, so your brain defaults to reacting, fight or flight, right? So they know this. So why are they always pumping fear out there to us? It's to take the thinking, rational, critical thinking part of the brain offline. So one thing to do is to heal your traumas so that you're not always in fear, because you're not thinking at that point and you're not choosing your response, you're reacting. They always want us in reactivity because that's how they control us. So if you do your inner work, and that involves therapy, that involves meditation, that involves exercising this vessel that your consciousness is inhabiting, feeding it the cleanest food you can find, sleeping enough, the basic stuff, being outside. If you're in nature, you harmonize to your organic frequency. When you're in the frequency fence they've built around the planet, those frequencies are deliberately destructive to us and unnatural. So you can do all kinds of things. You have to make your physical vessel healthy. You have to do your emotional work, and you have to do your mental work. So you have to unlearn all the programming that they've taught you since you were born on this planet. Your parents were programmed and they passed it on to you. They didn't know. Your educational system is to program you. The media is to program you. Hollywood is to show you a reality that programs you. So you need to become aware and deprogram, and then learn. There still are amazing books out there. There's knowledge. Listen to survivor testimonies, because we were in the nitty-gritty and we can tell you some things, right? So deprogram yourself, learn, go find the real history, put it all together for yourself, and that's how you will raise your consciousness. And there's a fine line. So you need to know the ugly truth of what they're doing, but you also need to keep your focus on what you want to create. Because the way I see it, this system, this satanic system, it's actually crumbling right now. There's holes in it. It's coming down. So we need to build a different system in its place. And the solution is to go back to local, take it away from global, go back to local. I read an article about a guy somewhere, I think it was in the Bronx in New York. He lived in a food desert area and he had a front yard. So he tore it all out and planted different produce, different plants, tomatoes and broccoli and whatnot. And then he encouraged his neighbors to come and tend to the garden, and everyone ate. That entire local neighborhood ate from his garden. They did it together, so people can start growing their own food. Take your children out of the mental, mind-controlled educational system that has been created by them. We can start new things. I've seen videos of schools where they're blindfolding kids, and kids are reading books blindfolded. They're taught telekinesis. They're lifting paper off their desk and crayons off their desk. Let's start new, different forms of educating children. And the way it's done is so stifling to their creativity. Instead of patronizing the Rockefeller medical system, which by design was created to harm and slow kill, and go to the real medicine, which is the natural one. There's plenty of people now that are training in that have advice. Exit the matrix as much as you can. If you work for a big corporate, try and do something on your own. The more we unplug from their matrix, the faster it falls, right? So there's so much we can do. And we can literally together, we can create a whole different world. But the problem is right now, they still have the majority of people mind controlled into believing all these everything is a lie. Everything they've told us pretty much is a lie. So But I see more and more truth coming out. I see more truth coming out about the pharma stuff. I see more truth coming out about a lot of things, about the food and what they've done to it, particularly in America. So I'm optimistic, but get yourself healed and whole, educate yourself, and and every person can do something. So what's your passion? Do something that can help change the global situation, whatever it is. If you start a garden, if you decide to start a little micro school that actually does it right, if you're raising children, I mean, motherhood is the most incredible sacred thing on the planet, to raise the next generation. Is it to speak out and whistleblow like I'm doing? Is it to create a different kinds of movies that are actually nourishing rather than programming you? I mean, whatever it is, there's so much we can do, and we can do it.
Yeah.
They're scared of that.
Yeah. 100%. Okay. There's a couple of questions I would like to ask you. There's a couple of points from the side chat I want to clarify. The first thing I'd like to clarify, when we talk about the Catholic Church and we talk about the Western world and what we would see as Westerners as the dominant religions, that's why a lot of this filters through that particular religion, right? Because there's an individual who's asking in the side chat, is it all religions, or are we just singling out the Catholic Church? Well, it's all a facade. The Catholic Church and all of the other off-sided of the sort of Jesus crew religions, okay, and that's not me criticizing Jesus or any of you guys who follow that side of things at all. It's a facade. When we're talking about the grassroots pastor, okay, from your hometown, there's a good chance he's probably not involved in this. All right, could be, okay, but when we're talking about the upper echelons, it's this epicenter that's being used because it's the historically dominant force that has come to power religiously. So it's at the epicenter of it all. Now, I just want to say that doesn't mean that the Catholic Church is innocent. The Catholic Church has made some of the biggest and most historical payouts in the last 5 years in America for historical abuse cases that are horrific. Okay. They're not what Max is talking about. They were good old-fashioned grassroots
Right.
PDF monsters that are local. They're milkmen and teachers and all of the people involved with the church. Okay, when Max said earlier that the politicians, they're the only face, they're the bottom of the ladder of this because they're the public face of it. Okay, so whereas we see the world that they're the top of the ladder, this is the bottom rung. The people that we see as the most powerful are the bottom rung. And they hide behind these institutes. They hide behind these puppets that they have. So don't feel like we're victimizing your religion. Your religion was a victim long before this podcast started. And it's something that you, as a practitioner of that, need to come to terms with. That's how I feel.
Yeah. And, no, absolutely. What religion gets right is that we have a connection to the divine. There's divinity in us. It's that spark of life, right? But what Satanism does is it takes everything real. The best formula for mind control is to take some truth and then add some distortion, and then they repackage it and they put it out. So in my view, from what I have experienced and from what I have studied, Jesus, who I call Yeshua, was a real human. He was a freedom fighter. He came here to fight Satanism. He did not like religion. He was Jewish. He did not like religion. He disavowed it. Okay. He taught how to achieve that high consciousness I'm talking about. He was able to perform miracles, but they're not miracles. We all actually can develop these abilities. So he was able to manifest, for example, many loaves of bread from one. That's actually doable once we get to that level. So he had achieved a certain mastery. He studied in Tibet, in Egypt, in India. He taught how to develop yourself, how to save yourself And so what did they do? So the Bible was written 325 years after he died. It was commissioned by Emperor Constantine because the Roman Empire was fraying at the edges, and a religion to unify it was a good idea.
Mhm.
But most of Jesus' teachings didn't make it into the Bible. They cherry picked what they put in there. So they took a real person who came as a freedom fighter, and they inverted his message into one of obedience and control. And think about this. They took this man, and what's the symbol that people worship? It's him tortured and dead on a cross. That's not an accident.
Yeah.
Okay?
I actually raised that point a couple of months ago in a podcast, because I've always asked this question. The God at the center of the Christian faith, he's kind of famous for being very kind of, you make your own decisions. It's all about the free will and not interfering. Well, it all kind of falls apart from me, because was it Mary's free will to have that baby? I don't think it was. I think he made a decision that he was going to impregnate that girl with his son, and then decided to make no more hearing on the evils of the world. That's a lot to unpack when day one of your faith, the whole foundation of it falls apart a little bit. Because
Jesus was an egalitarian. He had,
hell yeah.
Mary Magdalene was his partner. He had
Hell
female.
yeah.
Okay, but the church has to strip it all out. So to reduce women, look at every of these, like you said, monotheistic Western religions.
Mhm.
The women are omitted from it. Jesus would not like that. Okay, that's not what he stood for. So it's been distorted. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't get together with a group of like-minded people and do good in your community. Again, it's not the people at the lower levels of this that are the problem. It's the top of the hierarchy. Correct. But you have to look at where the twist is and where it's disempowering, and then unhook from that. So I'm not saying God, if you want to call it that, does not exist.
Neither am I. 100%. I'm not saying that either.
That's like saying, well, the iPhone just came into being by random forces of evolution and nature. No, someone made that product, okay? Yeah. And someone created everything that exists too. Okay.
I agree. Because let's just take away God for a split second, right? And let's just talk as two humans, right? Endless space is more confusing to me, Max. That we're just sort of like, okay, it just goes on forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. That blows my mind as the fact that as a topical discussion that no one's talking about, because it does blow my mind. But when it comes to what you were saying about Jesus, I agree. I mean, he was exactly as you said. He was a very powerful individual, but the story behind it all is the one thing where it falls apart a little bit for me. And that doesn't, I'm not trying to take anything away, because I believe if Jesus was to come back now, he'd be a bit like, what are you all doing with these massive churches and that? Like this, like you've seen my hairdo and beard, okay? Hug a tree, okay? You want to worship me? Hug a tree, hug a cat, hug your mother, okay? Worship me through showing me that you've learned from me, and I'm not even a follower of Jesus, and I get it. Do you know what I mean? But look, I feel like I kind of pulled us away from the Vatican a little bit quickly. I kind of triggered myself looking at this. So can you sort of circle back to this? Because I feel like I kind of interrupted you. Then we segued. I've been waiting for a moment to kind of pull us back into it. So this is very obviously a big, scary serpent head, Max. Like, also, this is the outside of it. I wanted to show this, okay? Because, like, there's no way you can put this little thought to the outside of a building, and then the inside of it turns out to look like a massive demonic snake head. It's right in front of us. I'm going to shut up, Max. I'm so sorry. Please continue with what you were saying about this, please.
Well, just that once you begin to see, you'll see satanic symbology everywhere there. And what I'm telling you is they routinely brutalize and sacrifice children underneath to their true God, which is Lucifer. Even their telescope, it's an acronym, but it spells Lucifer. You know, I mean, you can't make this up. The symbols that you showed, all of it, the lineage, you know, where they come from, they all come from the same families. So, you know, the royals, there was a girl in America who did a school project, unwittingly found that I think almost all, maybe minus one of the US presidents were related way back, you know. So these are just,
Yes.
there's a group of people that runs the world, and they call themselves elites. I'm just going to say this, and this may sound fantastic, but if you visualize the hierarchy of Earth as a pyramid, the people at the top of the pyramid are not human, okay? But they at some point bred with humans. And if you look at Greek mythology, all mythology is telling you real history. The demigods are the result, right, of the gods mating with human women.
Yep.
So this, they created a level of humans to, you know, because they would come and go off the planet to kind of control things. And these elites don't mix their bloodlines. They're very proud. They think that they're special because they're hybrids, okay? So these are the people that run the planet, and are, you know, the stewards of the ones above them that are not human.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, it's easy for us to look at this and go, oh, it's a bit snake-like. That looks like a big, scary reptilian alien. That's what that looks like to me. The widespread eyes and the mouth and the fangs and the big, dominant forehead coming up. Whatever way you interpret this, doesn't look very holy. I'm not going to lie. The stained glass windows look all right, but the rest of it's a bit mad. And that's the first time I've seen this. And I don't understand why this is the first time I've seen this, Max. You know, I can't imagine it's because they're not shoving it in people's faces on the internet very much, because they'll go, why does that look like a massive lizard?
Yep. Well, you know, there's a combination of, so for example, one of the ways they do disclosure is through TV shows and movies. So The Matrix, Stranger Things, Blacklist, Fringe, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, The Simpsons. So they have to tell us, but they do it in such a way that that we don't notice. And with us survivors, what they hope is that people won't believe us and will think that we're crazy, and they can't believe that such things as I've described, the level of brutality of what they will do to children, people can't fathom it because, well, we have a heart and we're human, but we have to remember these people are not. They're not. They don't have the heart online, and so they just hope that everything that comes out will not be believed, and, you know, then add the mind control and add that they've actually made the people that the normal human worships or looks up to are actually the worst people on the planet. So they've inverted everything.
Yeah. And another thing, and I'm sorry to take you down this road again. In fact, you know what? Hang on. Let me just take a note here. Hang on. Okay. I'll get to this point after this. This is the new Steven Spielberg movie, Disclosure Day. Have you seen the adverts and things for this about humans? It's time that we all knew and all of this stuff. It kind of gave me the heebie-jeebies. And when you're talking about movies and symbols, and when they put things out there through Hollywood, I mean, Spielberg's been away for a while, and now he's coming back with a movie called Disclosure Day. And I'll be honest with you, there's a moment in it where a TV weather girl is taken over by an off-worlder, and she starts clicking and talking through this sort of very, how you would imagine like a wee beastie, like a wee insect would talk. Do you know what I mean? Like, and all this kind of clicky-clocky. Like, do you think that we are being prepared for something? Because these kind of movies and this kind of preparation from Hollywood.
Yeah, there's a couple of things. There's disclosure, so that, see, if we don't say no, it's considered implied consent, right? So there's that. Then
Right,
there's
okay.
predictive programming. So prior to the scamdemic, there were lots of movies that showed such things occurring, and so there's predictive programming, and because it goes into the subconscious, and then when the event that they are going to orchestrate hits the world stage,
Yeah.
we've already got that in our subconscious. So that's called predictive programming. So it's a combination of all of the above. But with the consent thing, it's really important to revoke consent and compliance. So, because ultimately humans are the boots on the ground doing their dirty work. And so, for example, during the scamdemic, if people had said, no, I will not put a thing over my nose and mouth, or no, I will not shut down my business, if en masse people had done that, then that would be us saying no and not consenting. And that would have been then the way it was. It wouldn't have occurred. So we consent. And for example, even with something like voting, I don't vote because that's consenting to the system that oppresses me, and I do not give it consent. And I know that each character is just different characters, but they're all run by the same people behind the scenes. So they part of mind control is binary choice, left versus right, blue pill versus red pill, this choice or that choice. That's part of the mind control. So I know that the characters that I would be given to vote for are all working for this cult. So I don't vote because I don't consent to that system at all, for example, right? So that's a way to withdraw consent. The other factor is some pilot is flying the plane that's spraying the noxious stuff on us, right?
Mm-hmm.
Bill Gates isn't going to go fly the plane himself, okay? So they need us to do the dirty work. Some doctor is getting a bonus for those things that they're putting into children that, maim and kill them. So some teacher is teaching the new sexualized curriculum in the schools that's damaging little children, right? Somebody is always doing, anyone who goes and bombs innocents in another country is doing, they need us to do the dirty work. So if people en masse just withdrew from doing that, it would end right there. I know people are, and they've set up this system of poverty and scarcity, and you have to because you need a paycheck. Honestly, that's a whole nother rabbit hole. But why are we paying to live on our own planet where every resource is free? This is ridiculous.
It's got to be.
Oregon, I used to live there. In the state of Oregon, it's a felony to catch rainwater. And I just recently read an article of a guy.
A felony.
He had built these tanks and he had collected rainwater, and he was arrested, and his tanks the water was confiscated. Who owns the rain? Who owns the land, for that matter? Who owns the water? So you get to say,
anyone in the UK who's been putting up with American commentary saying that over in the UK people are being arrested for social media quotes, at least you can now say, well, in America people are being arrested for catching water. Okay, it's just as mad. Okay, so if it's okay with you, do you mind me circling back to some of the stuff that you went through? There's a couple of points that I'd like to ask you about, if that's okay. And the way I want to segue into this is, you spoke about people not being able to deal with these things, right? The public, right? I've described it as when you put your hand over a candle, eventually your brain pulls your hand away, right? This topic is the conversational flame that most brains pull away from. And I sadly have become an expert in the subcategories of PDF files. Okay. There's a meme. I just wanted to make camping videos, and that's what I came to YouTube to do. And here I am 7-8 years later. I've done a couple of documentaries. I've went deep into some of these subcategories, and you learn that the conventional abuse that people think of sexual abuse. Okay. When a normal person hears that, they go to an imprint in their brain of what they would associate the word sex with, right? And we can kind of, not imagine, but understand what that terminology means, if you get what I'm saying. But there are individuals out there who believe kids can consent, and it's all that they're the child lovers. That's your people who, in the UK, you had a group called Pi. They wanted to get the age of consent changed to 4. Okay, that's those kind of people. But I released a documentary called Hurt Core about individuals who it's about the destruction and suffering and the slow torture. There's nothing conventionally sex about it at all. And we recently seen a statement from a man called Sasha, who has come forward as an unconfirmed and alleged Epstein survivor. And he talks about very graphically this exact subcategory of individual where if you're beating the living life force out of a child, that's the most innocent form of destruction. And that mindset, the torture, the abuse, the breaking, the murder's too light a term. Okay, it's too light a term to say that. Like, it's too light a term. Okay, murder. Let me try and give you in my eyes, murder's when someone scoffs down their meal and it's over. Right. This is a long 12-course tasting menu. Okay, and I don't know how to repackage this for people. You can't repackage the individual who gets their mental gratification, worship, whatever, through suffering and destruction. And you witnessed and went through a lot underneath that Vatican in that area, right? And there was a lot of things that took place where you witnessed unalivings and the brutality of it all. How prevalent was the physical torment within this group, the torture and the physical suffering? How big a part of it all was it for them?
Oh, daily, all the time. The violations can occur with body parts. They can occur often with crucifixes. They can occur with any kind of object. They will actually cut, like, say, a hole in the thigh and use that to.
Yeah. I mean, we don't have to go into detail. I don't want to go into detail.
Yeah.
It was
No,
just
they don't.
acknowledging that.
This is a constant thing.
Yeah.
It's a constant thing.
And it's hard enough for people to get their head around normal PDF files. How messed up is it that we have to refer to one category as normal ones? Do you know how mad that in itself is, man? Sorry, I get really triggered. Okay, Ron is very passionate.
You should, honestly.
Right?
I'm glad that you.
The normal ones, right? The ones that just think kids can consent, right? That is the tip of the iceberg. Okay, and it just gets so much worse, and people want to ignore it, Max. And it's ignoring it that allows it to continue, because when you create mythology out of reality, that becomes unstoppable and it becomes this invincible thing. Because how do you destroy mythology? How can you destroy something that collectively we all have agreed cannot be happening when it is happening?
Yeah. And what you described is an attempt to normalize this PDF file-ness. So all over the world, countries have lowered the age of consent, and so they can claim there's less PDF file happening. Children cannot consent. They do not want that. The human brain does not finish developing till you're about 21. Children do not have the capacity to even understand what's going on. And so the people that say that it's love, they're just trying to justify their predatory behavior. This traumatizes a person and changes who they are and who they could become for the rest of their lives. This, Himmler in his research, one of the Nazis, found that the PDF filing of a child before the age of 5 is the best formula for creating a future mind-controlled slave. And if you look at it now, I believe most of the human population in regular, like you say, PDF fileness has been put through this. Most women and most men have gone through this. It's become more normal. And this is part of their agenda. They want this to occur because it destroys the human being. I mean, you can recover from it. You can heal from it. Thankfully, trauma is healable. But to do even just that one time to a child is just destroying them for the rest of their lives. Not to mention when it's repeated, when you're transported and given around, and it's your whole existence. No, and then eventually, some children, that's all they know, and then they die from it. It's no, this is not, and so no, they want to make this a normal part of. In America, they're called MAPS, minor attractive
Yes,
person.
they are.
Bull.
Yes,
Bull. Okay, no.
hell yeah, it's bull. Hell yeah. You're a goddamn dirty PDF. Rebrand all you want. Sorry, Max.
Yes.
The map. That's
no. It angers me, and I have had people say to me, "Look, I can't hear this. It's too traumatizing." Well, that would be like walking down the street, seeing a grown man pedophiling a child in a corner in an alley, and seeing it and walking by because it's too stressful. Right. I'm sorry, but what about the children that are going through it and actually experiencing it? It is our responsibility as adults to protect all the children of this planet. Correct. They are our children. They are the most precious resource we have. And by looking away, you're complicit in allowing this evil to continue. I forget who made that famous quote, that good men doing nothing is what allows evil to flourish. We have to do something.
Correct. And, almost word for word is exactly what I said about 5 or 6 years ago, right? The reason why, because people would say to me, why are you making these documentaries? This is harrowing stuff. Why are you putting it out there? Because I realized these people who are victims and who are captured have no capability of escape. So you have no right to ignore their story. You have no right to dull down the terminology and the realities of all this. YouTube want to make us this into some sort of palatable discussion with PDF files and transporting and all the rest of it. It's dumbing down the seriousness of this. We're creating an entire generation who are hearing the word R word and PDF file because this is where they're coming to be handed their freaking thought process. And it's scary, but also people, I really think more and more people are stepping up to the plate now, Max, and they are educating themselves. And it may be through formats where everything is really, they've taken the traumatic story and they've maybe whittled it down to the most palatable PG-13 version. But people are wakening up to it, and it's a horrible thought that we're ruled by these satanic. Hang on, I need to get the bleep button. Right? Okay, those people. Because it's easier to be in denial about it, Max, right? It's easier to go, oh, well, that was a fun podcast with Max and Ron. Delete all information because it's easier. It's the human condition, the human mindset has been reprogrammed that it wants the road of least resistance. And this is one of those roads where ignoring it certainly is the easier road. But for people like Max, for millions of other individuals around the world, it's not only what they have to deal with, but what they're living with right now. And we, the rest of the world, have no damn right to shy away from the realities of this. It's in no way here to glorify. And that's why I cut Max off when she started to talk a little bit too detailed about what was happening. I've learned that there's people that will follow people like Max around just to hear Max say things like that, because that's what gets them. Do you know what I'm saying? That's how twisted these people are, Max. And we can certainly educate people to a very harsh reality without giving individuals what they're after. This has been kind of amazing, Max. I did not really expect us to go down the roads that we went down tonight, and I would really like to continue this maybe some point in February, if you've got time, because I think this is a really good start point for people who maybe have just had a rude awakening, or people who have been waiting for me to talk more about this subject. And if you're watching this and you want more of this disclosure, this the real realities, scenarios, situations, stories, sorry, leave a comment, leave a like, share this out, because this is where my passion lies. And people like Max need to be heard. Their stories need to be pushed out there. And you guys are the ones that make that happen. So is there anything else you'd like to tell us, Max, as we're winding down this? And obviously GSIC, but anything else you've got coming up, let us know. Anything else you would like to talk about, let's talk about it. But what would be your final words wrapping this up? If you know what I'm saying.
Well, you have my website there if people want to. I interview a lot of other survivors and just people, whistleblowers in general, to kind of educate people on how the global cult works. So I have tons of interviews. They're free to watch. You can go to my website. I also have a membership option, and we have a small but beautiful community that meet once a month on Zoom. And we talk about, we're awake people, so that's a place to gather where we can be real with each other and talk about what's going on in the world and that kind of thing. So you can find that under the membership tab. I do seminars. I've done one on what SRA is. I've done one on the Vatican. I've done one on mind control. You can find that under the classes tab. And I am in the process of writing a book, so eventually that will come out. You know, I write on Substack, so geopolitical stuff that talks about all these things. So if you like reading, you can find me there. I'm on Instagram. And my videos are now back. I was banned for a while on YouTube, but I'm back. But I'm also on Rumble and on my website. And I am a trauma therapist. So if there are survivors out there who are looking for some help, you know, they can reach me. My email is max@unbroken.global. So, yeah. And my final words would be, we're at the most significant time in our human history right now, where we are not going to be reset again, where we are liberating ourselves. And we need everyone on board. We need everyone to do their inner work, to educate themselves on what the real reality is out there, and to take a stand and do something towards creating a better world. We've got this. I'm very optimistic. And this is why I speak out. We've got to stop what they're doing to children, and together we can do it.
100%. I'm fully on board. I have been for a long time with exactly what you said there, Max. I think everyone can stand by that. We'll see you again, Max, because this has been truly just an incredible introduction to yourself, the journey you've been on, the work you've done. And, you know, there's a lot more to this, especially when we start talking about off-world and souls and third eyes. And it's a lot for people to take. I think as well, some people get frustrated when survivor stories and these things kind of intertwine, but that's the reality of it all. And trauma is something that luckily I can't comment on, but so many individuals feel an awakening through trauma. And it's not just trauma, obviously, but it's very prevalent. And Max, thank you so much for giving up your time. Thank you for being here. And I can't wait to talk to you again. Thank you to all the mods. Thank you to everyone who's been here. Please make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you go and subscribe to Max. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Thank you for being here. And from me, Ron Swanson, as always, be safe out there, guys. Peace.